Cool. Thank you for being on the show, Mike Connolly.
Thank you for having me. Thank you so much
it's such a
for
pleasure.
having me.
I'm psyched. This is the first time you're on the show.
Yeah, how my glasses foggy or are they good?
Yeah, it's a little, it gets a little foggy here in the hot set.
Yeah.
You know, there's been a lot of activity in here. That's one thing about Somerville Media Center is that there's just a constant flow of traffic. Children and different community members, you know, people come in here and are constantly producing content. Folks at home that don't know about Somerville, I mean, it is 80,000 people in 4 square miles. We're getting cozy up in this house.
It's true. I mean, Somerville is one of the most densely populated cities in the United States, as is Cambridge, and we're growing. I mean, all you have to do is look up and you can see a crane, you know, moving something around and building something, and so lots happening. Yes, I was at the inauguration, and Mayor Joe, I think by all accounts it was a very impressive and bold housing plan, a 10-point housing plan.
I know.
Fortunately, or excitedly for me, several of the items on the mayor's plan are things we've already started working on.
I noticed that,
such as the tenant's right of first refusal, which is a bill that Representative Denise Provo filed. I filed legislation for a real estate transfer fee. It's another piece of the mayor's plan. So a lot of promising things there. But, you know, on the big level, I mean, what's going on? I mean, there's really 2 factors that are at play here. One, we have become a globally desirable location. I mean, this isn't just people growing up in Melrose or Norwood like we did. This is people on other continents looking to our community and saying, you know, that's where I want to be, or, you know, that's where I want to invest my money. So this is global demand, and then that's happening in an environment where we have profound wealth and income inequality. So, you know, if everyone wants to be here, but, you know, we have a small group of people with all the resources and everybody else just struggling to get by, we see what happens, and it's, you know, our friends and neighbors get pushed out of the community, and it's just a struggle to keep them.
It is.
I think the thing you were referring to may have been the mayor proposed an Office of Housing Stability, which I found to be really encouraging. In Boston, they pioneered this like Office of Housing Stability idea. It was actually run by Lydia Edwards, who recently became a city councilor. Something I was really excited to see happen. But she ran this office really well, and there are so many different pieces where if you are a tenant and you get the word that your landlord is looking to sell or looking to, you know, bring the rent up really dramatically, there are always options where if you know your legal rights, if you know of other opportunities, you can have a fighting chance to stay in the city. And so this Office of Housing Stability could really help connect people.
Oh, that's so important.
Because it's a real level, thanks. It's just a real level thing, you know? I mean, if you're living paycheck to paycheck and you get...
most are.
Like many people are, and then you get displaced, you know, you need to think about, okay, I need a first month's rent, I need a last month's rent, I need a security deposit, and when these rents are in the, you know, $2,000, $3,000 range for a tiny, you know, 1-bedroom, that just starts becoming enormous amounts of money that, you know, most of us can't put together. So that's the concern. It's definitely concerning. So the idea would be that when a piece of real estate is sold, then a portion of the sale price, and you know what I've been contemplating is something in the range of 0.5% up to perhaps 2%, depending on the circumstance. That fee would then be directed to the Affordable Housing Trust Fund in the respective city. So Somerville has an affordable housing trust, Cambridge has an affordable housing trust, many cities do. And you know, that would just be a way of capturing some of this value. you know, we need to produce more housing, the area is growing, and the insight that myself and others have had is, you know, if you look at Somerville, if you look at Cambridge, if you look at Boston, what you're seeing is some pretty extraordinary housing production. Again, the cranes are everywhere. You know, it's very hard. You know, I live on Ashburton in Cambridge. Within a 200-yard walk of where I live, there's two significant housing developments going on. We're here in Union Square. Of course, there's several housing developments planned up at Assembly. There's all kinds of housing being built over at North Point, which is also in my district. Thousands of units of housing being built. Wow. At the Volpe site in Kendall Square, which is also in the district I represent, an enormous amount of housing is coming online. Amazing. So lots of housing is coming here. And then when you get just beyond this inner urban core and you go out to places like Belmont, you go out to places, you know, like Malden and these other communities that are even connected to the MBTA. So they're places that are well served by, you know, commuter rail, sometimes subway, sometimes bus lines. You go to these communities, no housing production happening, very little. Often there are real strong political efforts against developing particularly multifamily or affordable housing. So one of the things I'm working on in the legislature is to really, you know, turn to these other communities and say, we're doing everything we can. We literally are building in every direction. We need you to step up and do more in your communities as well, so that we have even more options. If you have a job in Boston or you have a job in Somerville, the reality is if you're living, you know, 15, 20 miles out of the city, it can feel, and practically it is impossible to, you know, get in and out of this city during rush hour.
Oh, by car, yeah.
During snowstorms,
right.
And all that. And really, we have to do better there because if we invest more in public transit, then it becomes possible to say, okay, I'll live 10 miles up the road. Yeah. I can hop on a train, zip into the city in 5 or 10 minutes.
Absolutely.
And live my life and do it in a way that's affordable. Right now, we don't have those options. So all the pressure is just being amplified right here in these neighborhoods, and it's very tough. Well, so the immediate news is the MBTA bus mechanics who have been threatened with privatization for going on a full year now, possibly even longer. It's been a long saga for them. They just, in the last 24 hours, apparently have achieved a tentative agreement, which needs to be ratified by their members. It's, you know, they're a labor union, but they've reached an agreement with the state, and the sense coming out of it is that the jobs are being protected. But all the details are, I've actually been briefed on the details, but I've been sworn to secrecy. I will say that I feel very positive about it. It seems very good. It all has to sort of be officially memorialized, but there's a story in the Boston Herald as of this afternoon saying that a deal's been reached. So
that's great news.
Yeah.
We need to really strengthen and protect more of our labor unions.
And people should know that, you know, obviously we do have a lot of room to improve at the MBTA, but what we're talking about here are the bus mechanics who are actually, you know, it's very easy to rank bus mechanics because you can just look at, okay, you know, how many miles do the buses travel before they break down? So that's like a core statistic for bus maintenance performance. We, with our MBTA bus mechanics, have the #1 ranking by far in terms of bus maintenance performance.
Wow.
And so, for example, you remember a few years ago when we had the horrible blizzards back to back to back, the MBTA buses kept running. I mean, there were very little issue or problem with those buses. I mean, the problems were on primarily the commuter rail, which, what do you know, that's all privatized. That was like the worst. And then the subways had some issues too. Yeah. I think some efforts have been made to try to improve the subway situation. But the point being is, it is about the workers, but it's not just about the workers. You know, I actually have faith, and I think there's evidence that shows that when you invest in a workforce, when you treat a workforce right, in the end, they're going to deliver better results and a better value than what you see with privatization. And if you look at the commuter rail, it's pretty pretty clear that is the case. There is sort of this strain of thought out there, and publications like the Boston Herald, really play it up in a big way. There's this thought that that the workers have it, they have it too good, that somehow we have to, go look to the workers and kind of hold them responsible for what's going on. And I completely reject that. I think many people in Cambridge and Somerville reject that. I don't blame a maintenance worker or a car driver. I mean, I blame, the leadership for decades not making the investments that have needed to be made, and we're starting to make some of those investments. I mean, we see the Green Line extension has been funded. So what the fair share would do is it's a constitutional amendment, and it would tax $1 million earners. So it's not just if you're worth $1 million, it's not going to tax you. But if you literally are earning $1 million or more in a given year in Massachusetts, then every dollar over $1 million will have an additional 4% income tax on it.
Wow. And
what that would end up doing would generate approximately $2 billion with the intention of it annually, $2 billion every year. So to put that in perspective, the Green Line extension itself has a price tag in the ballpark of $2 billion. So if you could imagine, and we've been trying to do the Green Line now going on almost 3 decades. So if you could imagine in our state being able to do something on the scale of the Green Line every year instead of once every several decades, this fair share amendment will really be the key to us to making these enormous investments. And the intention is half of it would go to education, so it'd be $1 billion for education, and the other half would be half for transportation, the other half for education. I would like to see us have free, at the very least, free public education for everyone, from pre-kindergarten all the way through college and even up to grad school and beyond.
Oh, what a beautiful goal. Education should be absolutely 100% free, especially considering I don't even know how many millionaires live in Massachusetts. Do you know? A lot of millionaires?
So back when we were working on the Fair Share Amendment even more, I had the exact number in mind. It's on the order of several thousand.
Golly!
So,
several thousand millionaires.
If I had to throw a number out, I would say, I don't know, 10,000-ish, more or less. My general understanding of the concept is, the way development generally works is, things happen and then taxes get paid to the city, taxes get paid to the state, and then those taxes just go into general pools of revenue. And so if I understand the concept correctly with the DIF, what you could do is sort of designate an area and then maybe think through, well, what are the taxes that are going to be generated there? And can you sort of automatically appropriate them into investments that could support the development? So if that's sort of what's being talked about, I think it's an interesting idea. Obviously, there's sort of pros and cons in each direction. So on the one hand, let's say you do a big project in a neighborhood. You can anticipate there's going to be impacts, some of them good, some of them negative. So the potential would be to say, we anticipate this tax revenue, that'd be a good thing. We can plan and make some policies to direct that tax revenue to address the specific negative consequences and then try to achieve the development, in a more balanced way.
What are some of the negative?
Well, any development, depending on, for example, we're doing a lot of commercial development. The thing about commercial development is when you attract high-end, top paid workers to your area, the more they are attracted to the area, the more they're going to look for housing, and then the higher rents are going to go, and the more displacement will be a problem. So just conceptually speaking, one thing you can do, and we generally do this in different ways with linkage fees, but you could do even more of it, is, you could say, okay, to the extent that this big commercial development's generating revenue, let's obtain some of that tax value and directly invest it into affordable housing, into housing protection, into trying to take speculative properties off the market and make them available for affordable housing. So, I think the concept is really, values being created, but impacts are being created. What tools can we draw upon to capture that value and use it to address the impacts?
So, okay, so high land costs are an obstacle to developing and securing affordable housing for lower income families. One way to address this issue is to purchase a house without the land, and a community land trust is one mechanism that allows this arrangement. And I'm just so interested in this concept. Is this something that you've helped to bring to?
Yeah, no, I mean, I'm a big supporter of community land trust. There's a gentleman here in Somerville, Joe Beckman. I don't know if you know Joe.
Yes, we know Joe Beckman.
Joe, if you're watching, I love community land trust.
Yes.
And Joe is the strongest advocate I know.
So strong.
So I would encourage you to invite him to talk about community land trusts anytime. But, essentially the issue here is, the cost of land and the cost of real estate is just accelerating. It's going up tremendously. And so what we have to do, whether it's community land trusts or other tactics, we need to get public control and collective control of more property, and not have so much of it in the hands of speculators, private interests, investors.
Absolutely.
And so community land trusts are definitely one way to do it, and certainly something, I believe, as I recall, the mayor included that in his 10-point plan.
Yeah.
And I'm really excited to, pursue that idea as well. I mean, it's definitely a proven idea, so this isn't like, we're inventing the wheel. I mean, it's really about us just, drawing upon all the different strategies that could work.
Yeah.